Hello, I'm CJ Wellerman. Please don't forget to subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. A reason why Western audiences are so easily deceived by pro-Israel propaganda is the special relationship that Israel enjoys with the American entertainment industry. A relationship described as a love story by Israeli media, with movies such as Exodus, Munich, and Zohan affirming Zionist talking points that claim that Jewish migrants to the Middle East are surrounded by backwards natives and violent savages. But what if Hollywood told a different story? What if it portrayed an accurate account of historical events, rather than Zionist told lies? Well, we would have films that show how European Jewish migrants formed themselves into terrorist groups to ethnically cleanse 512 Arab villages in the 1930s. We would also have a movie about how these same terrorists attacked British soldiers and diplomats in the 1940s, resulting in the bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, which killed dozens of British diplomats, forcing an end to the British Mandate and resulting in the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. Yes, in case you already didn't know, Israel is the direct beneficiary of terrorist attacks against an indigenous population and our Western allies. But if Hollywood conveyed history in an honest and truthful manner, then we would also have movies about the 1948 Nakba, which saw nearly 1 million Palestinians killed and driven from their homes. And we would have films that narrate the multiple genocides that have taken place in the Palestinian territories under Israeli occupation. And I have no doubt that a Hollywood-produced movie that narrated the deliberate and strategic bombing of the USS Liberty by Israeli warplanes in 1967 would make compelling viewing for American audiences. Now, wouldn't that be something? Well, the good news is this, that day is coming and soon, as we're fast approaching the final days of Israel's stranglehold over Hollywood for the simple reason that Palestine is uniting the world. This is undeniable. The identities of Israel's last remaining supporters is a who's who of racists, psychopaths, scoundrels, and war profiteers, serving yet another reminder that the worst people on this planet are pulled into the Zionist regime's orbit. This is driving a stake into the heart of the American entertainment industry, which has always prided itself as the vanguard of progressive and liberal values. You see, Hollywood wants to be ahead of the times, not behind them. It wants its films and songs to lay down the markers of history as they bend the moral arc of the universe towards justice, which is why it produces movies that humanize the disenfranchised and marginalized. It's also why Hollywood takes a strong stand against racism, fascism, and dispossession. And it's why it produces films that expose the culprits of war crimes and genocide. But now that 26,000 innocent Palestinians, including 9,500 children, have been slaughtered by Israel during the past 75 days, with another 2 million facing starvation, dehydration, and disease, Hollywood is discovering that it can no longer stand in solidarity with an apartheid Jewish supremacist state. In other words, the love story is over. Genocide in Gaza has put an end to that, which is why we are seeing Hollywood change its tune towards Israel and the Palestinian people. The change is subtle, but it's significant and measurable. But we start this story on October 14, when 700 actors and artists signed an open letter in support of Israel.
As the conflict rages in the Middle East, Hollywood is coming together to show its support for Israel 1 week after that deadly surprise attack. More than 700 celebrities signed an open letter released by the nonprofit Creative Community for Peace. Some of the names on that letter: Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Jamie Lee Curtis, Liev Schreiber, Amy Schumer, Michael Douglas, Mark Hamill, and Jerry Seinfeld. The letter reads...
They signed the letter after it was believed that 1,400 Israeli citizens were killed, but before we learned that the actual number was only 695, and before we discovered that majority of them were killed by panicked Israeli soldiers, tank commanders, and pilots. And now that Israeli leaders have promised to turn Gaza into a Nazi extermination camp, while killing 25 Palestinians along the way, 92% of whom were innocent civilians, most of these celebrities have gone noticeably silent. This vacuum is being filled with morally courageous actors and artists who no longer fear punishment for doing and saying the right thing. This is the first clue that the times are changing. The second clue was summarized in my recent column, which documented more than 1,000 instances in which actors, artists, and public personalities have been targeted for punishment by the Zionist lobby. This is evidence of an increasingly desperate Israel, losing control of its own narrative. It made actress Susan Sarandon its first target when it had her fired from her agency immediately after she gave this speech at a pro-Palestine rally in New York.
You don't have to be Palestinian to stand with the Palestinian people. You do not have to be Palestinian to understand that the slaughter of almost 5,000 children is unacceptable and a war crime.
Another Israeli missile was launched deep into the Hollywood Hills when actress Melissa Barrera was fired from the Scream movie franchise after she likened Gaza to a concentration camp, a comparison that's been made many times by Jewish Holocaust survivors. Nevertheless, her courage inspired a group of 55 prominent actors and artists in the entertainment industry to sign an open letter to President Biden, urging him to put a stop to Israeli and American bombs falling on Gaza. These celebrities include Joaquin Phoenix, Cate Blanchett, Jon Stewart, and Rami Youssef. Barrera's courage also inspired Cynthia Nixon, a Jewish-American actress and star of the hit television series Sex and the City, to speak out forcefully on behalf of the Palestinian people.
I am the mother of 2 Jewish children whose grandparents are Holocaust survivors. And my oldest son in particular, he really has been reaching out to my wife and I and asking us, imploring us really, to say, use your voice to affirm as loudly as you can that never again means never again for anyone. And in the last very short 8 weeks, we've seen the deaths of over 16,000 civilians, Palestinians in Gaza, which include over 7,000 children. And to put that in some kind of a context, that is more civilians than were killed by the U.S. and its allies in almost 20 years of war in Afghanistan. And the images coming out of Gaza, the children who have no water, who have no food, who have no homes, who have no shelter of any kind, weeping over the bodies of their slain parents.
Her honesty and forthrightness, along with her Jewish identity, has given permission for others to come forward and end their silence, including the famous rapper Macklemore, who gave his powerful impromptu speech in Washington, D.C.
They told me to be quiet. They told me to do my research, to go back, that it's too complex to say something, right? To be silent in this moment. In the last 3 weeks, I've gone back and I've done some research, and I'm teachable. I don't know enough, but I know enough that this is a genocide, and we are scared. We are watching it unfold. We have been taught to just be complicit, to protect our careers, to protect our interests, and I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not afraid to speak the truth.
There's also Mark Ruffalo, who's been a long-time advocate for Palestinian rights. There's Jessica Chastain, who criticised the Washington Post and New York Times for not adequately covering the tragedies in Gaza. And then there's John Cusack, who condemned what he called a brutal occupation of the Palestinian people. Also, American singer The Weeknd donated $2.5 million to Gaza at the same time the lead singer of Coldplay, Chris Martin, reminded the world of its responsibility to denounce acts of genocide, occupation, and terrorism.
We wondered if we could ask you, because right now there's so much trouble in the world, so many terrible things happening, and we have to remember that most people on earth are full of love and full of kindness and compassion, and don't want to judge anybody else for being themselves, and want to be free to be themselves. That's what we believe. We don't believe in oppression or occupation or terrorism or genocide, nothing like that. We believe in loving each other, being kind to each other.
Palestine is changing America for the better. I truly believe that. And I'm also certain these changing attitudes towards the Palestinians are reshaping Hollywood's attitude towards Israel. This is why we must applaud celebrities who have nothing to gain and everything to lose by raising their voice against Israeli occupation and genocide. I know this to be true because these same forces have worked hard to silence my journalism for more than a decade. But the tide has finally turned against Israel. The world will never unsee, forget or forgive the horrors that have taken place against defenseless human beings in Gaza. And soon, Hollywood will produce films that humanize the Palestinian people and promote their struggle for liberation. I'm sure of it. Anyway, that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we kindly ask you please support our effort to expose and confront injustices in the Muslim world by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWirleman. This show is made possible only because of the support we receive from our patrons and YouTube members, and we can't thank them enough. It's just a simple reality that we can't produce, sustain and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefits to those who do. But for now, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and stay blessed.